GEOS is a global Earth observation system of systems, so it's an initiative at the global level to address environmental issues, to share data, models, processes, information in order to get a better understanding of some of the drivers of environmental change and some of the consequences on humanity. And this is clearly a global effort. So even from a European perspective, the environment just doesn't stop at the borders of Europe. And as European citizens, we are also contributing to the changes that are taking place in the environment. So we have a responsibility to work at the global level with everyone else, and that's why we need to participate in GEOS.
What we have addressed are mainly the areas of Earth observation where we know that there are major gaps to cover. And this is in particular true for the in situ component of Earth observation. We have as well started the development of some new areas of use of Earth observation data and new ways of producing Earth observation data, like what we call the citizens' observatories.
The European Commission organizes this series of workshops with two objectives. First of all, in order to show, to disseminate the work that is carried out by the different projects that we are co-funding. And also, the second objective is to contribute to the networking.
The different FP7 research projects can meet and explain to each other in some detail what are they doing and consequently to share their experiences.
It's a great initiative involved in the analysis and exploitation of big data in general, and the possibility to integrate all this data in a large international databases. But the definition and the use of international standards and the participation of all these countries in a whole project, in a whole idea.
The main ideas in this very interesting session related to the cross-SBA relationships between health, the environment, climate, water and energy, and the impact of, for example, energy on health or the environment on health.
Well, the session was very interesting. They focused on technical issues on e-infrastructures, and the main goal is the sustainability of these infrastructures and and how they can contribute the GEOS implementation. Especially, we have to find ways to use this infrastructure in each societal benefit areas of GEOS.
In the session we saw a number of presentations both on the Copernicus, which is the major Earth observation program within Europe, dealing with in situ data collection, dealing with satellite measurements, but also dealing with actual services. And within Copernicus you see services dealing all the way with global data, local data, different scales. And in particular, the global component is relevant for GEO, which is a global effort by itself.
I think it was a really interesting session with various topics being addressed, ranging from monitoring carbon fluxes to monitoring river discharge for hydropower applications. And I think the main take-home message was that there's a lot of progress being made in combining Earth observation satellite data, in situ data and modeling to address the various topics, the various problems.
In this section, we heard talks describing how in different contexts GEOS was used for enhancing the capacity of people of dealing with, for example, challenging issues such as environmental issues in different countries. They include exchanges of academics, researchers, students, training session, courses which were held in Africa as well as in Asia. They include also increasing the awareness of the powerfulness of GEOS as a tool for dealing with environmental problems based on Earth observation.
The session showed that all the projects that were presented are well in line with the GEO work plan tasks. Of course, the level of coordination with the task is different. For some of them, like the biodiversity, GeoBond, the project is really embedded in the planning of the geotask. For others, there is still some work to do to better coordinate the results of the project within the aim of the geotask.
In the ecosystem session that we just had, we saw an example of how farming practices are being monitored through the use of indicators. And these indicators, the data necessary for these indicators is being provided by GEOS, and also the need for data quality and data checking is being provided by a program called GeoViqua. So in combination with the data provision and data monitoring, quality monitoring I should say, we are able to effectively monitor rice agricultural practices, farming practices, to see if they are in compliance with European Commission directives.
In this session, some improvements in the GEOS infrastructure have been presented, such as the innovations in the GEO portal that will be ready by September 2013. Also saw improvements and innovations that will be implemented in the DAP, the consideration of generating new data through processes, components in the GEOS infrastructure, and also the consideration of the sign-off, sign-on as a way of accessing data.
Yeah, the disaster team session, they gave a comprehensive overview of the current projects which are now executed under the European FP7 framework program, and they were highlighted by the speakers. A few of them were very related to the supersites, which gave a very nice overview of how the Earth observation systems are used for monitoring geologically active regions in Europe, like for example the earthquake-prone area around Istanbul in the Marmara Sea, and also like the projects related to volcanic eruptions like in Iceland and also in the southern part of Italy.
There is a general willingness to include the private sector as a GEO stakeholder. Of course, there are a lot of challenges in front of us. It was reaffirmed that GEO should remain an intergovernmental body, but we should find the ways and a proper framework to allow, on one side, private sector contribution to build GEOS, on the other side, private sector to use what GEOS has to provide.
Successful projects should always include in their own proposal at the very start what they think would make their activity sustainable when the project is finished. Those financed by the European Commission could continue, possibly, if the proposals are excellent, if they will prove existing gaps in research, development and innovation, especially vis-à-vis the objectives of the Horizon 2020. Of course, there is also a role for private foundations.
Europe makes a great contribution to the implementation of this global Earth observation system of systems. We are really recognized as one of the leading, if not the leading, player in the world in this field. And much of the work that we do is done within these projects. So we thought it would be a good idea to sort of start this series of workshops. But when you do this, you have really no idea whether they're going to succeed or not. And the first ones were much smaller. What's happened since is that this is now the 7th one. Each one has grown and grown, and there's more people involved in the dialogue. So they really have, I think it's fair to say, been a phenomenal success and exceeded all our expectations when we started.
The outcome of this 7th European GEO project is mostly in the domain of the contribution of Europe to the GEO task and to the GEO 2012-2015 work plan. and we have been able to assess the capacity of Europe to contribute to GEO through those projects. And actually it's very satisfactory because we can see that in a lot of tasks Europe is a leading entity. This is also the opportunity to network the different projects together so that we can decide how they work together into the direction of GEO. And last but not the least, we also had a session on GEO post-2015, so what's going to be GEO in the future. And this section is quite useful because we need to decide what Europe needs and wants for GEO in the future.
Thank you.